Afternoon. I'm Dr. Mustafa Aziz Shuman. Welcome you all in today's program. As you know, this is the last program of this year by Oncology Club. Today, the discussion will be on brain metastasis from non-small cell lung cancer, a very challenging and ever-changing topics. Today's our speaker, none but Dr. Sharif Ahmed, who is a very promising young oncologist, associate consultant of United Hospital. At first, I would like to take permission from our chairperson, Professor M.A. Haiser, to start this program. Over to you, Professor M.A. Haiser.
Thank you, Shimon. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, I welcome you all today for today's seminar. You said this is our last seminar. No, it is not the last. We have another webinar on Wednesday on gynae oncology.
Oh, sir, I'm sorry, sir.
Tuesday, sir. Tuesday.
Tuesday. Day after tomorrow.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So I hope we have already 28 were now. Get to start without delay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Start. Okay, Shimon, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to request our today's presenter, Dr. Sharif Ahmed, to present his topics. Dr. Sharif Ahmed, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Mustafa Aziz Shuman. Actually, I just want to share my slides first. My slide is visible, my slide?
Yes.
You can proceed.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the Oncology Club for giving me opportunity to discuss about the management of brain metastasis from non-small cell lung cancer. We all know that the brain metastasis is 10 times more frequent than primary brain cancer. And eventually, 20% of all cancer patients develop brain metastasis. And the incidence is rising because of better primary tumor control. And brain metastasis and lung cancer. Up to 50.5% brain metastasis is diagnosed with primary as a lung cancer. And the number is increasing day by day. Recently in ESMO Virtual Congress 2020, there is a nice presentation that brain metastasis in patients with neurological symptom was increasing day by day. And this incidence was 15.3% in the period from 1986 to 1999, which rose to 25.5% from 2000 to 2009. And it was recorded high as 31.4% during the period from 2010 to 2020. So brain metastasis is a challenging thing an important thing in the management of non-small cell lung cancer, because day by day, brain metastasis from lung cancer is increasing. And what are the symptoms of brain metastasis? If the brain metastasis can be presented as a high variable symptom. It can be asymptomatic for a longer period of time too. And symptom may be gradual presentation or rapid progression. And what is the ideal imaging for brain metastasis? MRI is the modality of choice, not only for the diagnosis, also for MRI and other brain imaging is important, also for the treatment planning. Though computer CT scan is also important, but is not superior from MRI. Double contrast CT scan can be done in indicated patient where MRI is contraindicated. This is the typical MR image of the brain metastasis. First one is T2 weighted image, and second one is a T1 weighted image with contrast, and the third one is a diffusion weighted image. And right now we come to the main topic of our today's presentation. What is the treatment approach or treatment option for the brain metastasis in non-small cell lung cancer? First of all, neurosurgery, second radiotherapy, third systemic therapy, and finally supportive treatment. First, we start with the evaluation of the treatment of brain metastasis. Pre-90s, poor prognosis was suggested. What is the treatment option? Radiotherapy versus best supportive care. And during the 90s, with the development of the surgery and radiotherapy, it was found that surgery plus radiotherapy is better than radiotherapy, whole brain radiotherapy alone. In 20s, is more developed. So, stereotactic radiosurgery plus whole brain radiotherapy is superior to whole brain radiotherapy. And not the least that still now it is a debatable what is better for the brain metastasis treatment, surgery or SRS. And it is a timeline. If you look at the, when in the 1926, first permission was granted to do a brain metastatic surgery. And in 1950, whole brain radiotherapy was started. And the early 70s, the CT scan was invented and it was started to do regular checkup for the brain metastasis. And the 2015, the development with SRS with whole brain radiotherapy, and 2018, there is more development with systemic therapy in the brain metastasis. So intensifying treatment, whose patient is the beneficiary, it should be individualized. We should be rational before the intensive treatment of brain metastasis. It depends on several factors. Number one, extracranial disease. Number two, intracranial disease. Number three, patient-related factor. Extracranial disease, whether the primary is controllable or progressing, and prognosis and other treatment after the primary disease. And the intracranial disease is the more important thing to take decision about the treatment option regarding SRS or whole brain radiotherapy or boost or surgery. That the number, volume, and location of the metastasis, mass effect, and certainty of the diagnosis. And patient-related factor is performance status, patient preference, and incurrent medical problem and other comorbidities. So these are the factors which favor the intensive local therapy or surgery or SRS. Single or solitary metastasis, adequate performance status, no or mild neurological deficit, number of stable extracranial tumor manifestation. So this is the commonly used prognostic assessment criteria. This is also called as Langmuir GPA. There is the evaluation of this scale. First of all, it was the RPA, then it was become modified and added some other factors to become a Lang GPA. And lastly, it became a Langmuir GPA. What is the Langmuir GPA? It is the disease-specific graded prognostic assessment, which include the molecular variety of lung cancer. If we show that the criteria is 0, 0.5, and 1, and the from the second row, it is gene status. It was included recently that if EGFR mutation positive, its score is 1, and if score is 1, the probability of disease progression-free survival is more. So starting with the first treatment option, this is surgery. So who achieved the maximal safe resection? How do you know my patient can be operated? It should be discussed by our neurosurgeon colleague better than me. So I don't want to go for the detailed discussion about the neurosurgical option of the brain metastasis. What is the second option is the radiotherapy. Recently, we all know that we all talk about the SRS. SRS means stereotactic radiosurgery. It is a highly targetable radiotherapy with sub-millimeter accuracy. Now, highest dose can be delivered with a single fraction or small multiple fraction, spare the normal brain tissue. But it is not always not appropriate for all the patients. So patient selection criteria is the first thing to remember, keep in mind in our mind that the number one is the number of the metastases able to treat with SRS. Evidence that volume is more important than number. Sometimes we say that we have treated the 10 number of metastases. It can be, but volume is more important than the number. And UK NICE guidelines suggested metastatic volume should be equal or below 20 cc in total. And always SRS. This is the picture we showed the method of SRS delivery by gamma knife. It was first invented in 1949 by Lars Leksell as a Swedish inventor. And the second one, this one is the Cyber knife, invented by John and Adher, and in 1994, and FDA approved this clinical evidence to treat the patient in 1999. And this is the most commonly used SRS method or fractionated SRS method using the LINAC accelerator. And first of the Spanish neurosurgeon John Barcia started in 1952 investigation about the LINAC-based SRS. And in 1986 in USA, the first FDA approved and the first patient was treated. So what is the best for us? Is it SRS or surgery? It is a great debatable. Still, there is no randomized data was pound 1 atom RCT was done. But with the development of science and modern radiotherapy techniques, right now there is no significant difference. The first paper that was comparison study was done, which was retrospective, and in 1986 it shows that surgery was better than the SRS. But in 2003 there was a big retrospective data analysis which showed there is no significant survival benefit. And so if we compare the both treatment modality, surgery and SRS, they have their own benefit. In surgery, if the brain metastasis is the first presenting symptom, we can confirm the histology. Molecular profiling can be done at that time. Larger lesion, if after surgery, if patient get immediate benefit, faster resolution of symptom and faster tapering of the steroid, and complication usually immediate. But it should be rely on the GA fitness. And on the other hand, stereotactic radiosurgery, it can, if you know the histology, you can go for stereotactic radiology, smaller lesion, no mass effect, possible or save the critical organ, or if the critical organ is involved or injured during the surgery. Outpatient treatment, patient come and go within a day. It can be possible in unfit, surgically unfit patient. Complication usually delay. But there is a risk of radiation necrosis and longer dose of steroid can be needed. So right now, I like to take a focus on the SRS. When we talk about the SRS, everything is covered in mind that is a single fraction, but also we do SRS in a multiple fraction, which we can be called fractionated stereotactic radiosurgery. It is suitable for larger lesion, usually more than 3 centimeter, proximality to an organ at risk. Multiple lesion, if patient get previous radiation on other neurovascular or neurological comorbidities. In our country, still now we have used fractionated stereotactic radiotherapy. And the number of the lesion is one of the important prognostic factor while we are treating the brain mets. This is a data which was published in the Lancet Oncology 2014, which shows the number of the tumor or number of the metastasis is proportional to the median overall survival. We show that if the number of is metastasis at 5 to 10, the overall median survival is 10.8 months, whereas the single tumor is 13.9 months. So this is the dose fractionation. I cannot go for the detail of the dose fractionation. Every center or most of the center followed the RTOJ 9005 guideline. It can be delivered for 20 to 24 gray in single fraction depending on the size of the lesion. If it is larger than 15 gray to single fraction can be given. It is the to 4 centimeter. And this is the hypofractionation dosage schedule. We have highlighted which is the most commonly used dose fractionation in our country. The most commonly used is if we combine with the whole brain radiotherapy, it is 5 gray, 6 gray in 5 fractions. Total dose is 30 gray, or either 9 to 10 gray in 3 fractions. So, in inference, RCT used to 3 to 4 metastases, but there is no clear biological rationale for that number. The 3 or 4 number is more better, it can be treatable. But some centers also treated now more than 10 metastases safely with a good outcome. No clear survival difference between incremental increase in the number of metastases. UCO NICE guideline no recommendation till now regarding the maximum number of metastases, but they have suggested the volume should be less than or equal to 20 cc. And there is an interclinician variation in view of microscopic disease. 10 is the commonly employed practical maximum number of brain metastases that can be treated with SRS. So, first we go for the neurosurgery, then we follow the SRS, and the patient come after surgery. What should be done? Post-resection management. What happened after surgery? It can be observation, it can be adjuvant RT, it can be cavitary SRS. So, 3 different definitive trial is from there. Adjuvant RT versus observation, cavitary SRS versus observation, and adjuvant whole brain radiotherapy versus cavitary stereotactic surgery. This is a big meta-analysis or systemic review which was presented in the Journal of Neuro-Oncology in 2010, which showed that if surgery is combined with whole brain radiotherapy, and in one arm and other arm is the only whole brain radiotherapy, there is no overall survival benefit, but the local control is improved. So what is the, if you use abdomen whole bone radiotherapy after surgery, it showed that there is a incremental progression-free survival is more in the whole bone radiotherapy arm after surgery. But there is no overall survival benefit. If another meta-analysis and the systemic review was done, and which was very also the Journal of Neuro-Oncology, we showed the surgery versus whole bone radiotherapy versus surgery alone. It showed that if you combine whole bone radiotherapy after surgery, it improved the local control too, but no overall survival benefit. Then how come that there is a, always we think that the SRS give more benefit than the whole bone radiotherapy. So if we combine adjuvant SRS with the after the surgery and compare with the whole bone radiotherapy after the surgery, it shows that there is a no survival benefit is shown. But if you want to, but neurocognition deterioration free survival is less in whole bone radiotherapy than the SRS. So surgery followed by, there's another option you have to compare, and there is another study or another meta-analysis of system review presented recently. That is the compare about the surgery with whole bone radiotherapy versus surgery, SRS plus whole bone radiotherapy. As you think that there is a most outcome, patient outcome is almost similar in surgery and both SRS. So why should not we combine SRS with double whole bone radiotherapy or surgery with whole bone radiotherapy? Heavily debated, but no, there is no survival benefit or benefit. But there is a mild or non-significant improvement in the local control. So post-resection treatment option, the pros and cons. If we go for the whole bone radiotherapy, reduce local failure, reduce distance failure too, that is new metastasis elsewhere in the brain, but there is a risk of neurocognitive function decline. And SRS after the surgery or cavitary SRS reduce the local failure, but local control is inferior, or a new site develop, new metastatic development is inferior in to whole brain radiotherapy. Better cognitive and quality of life and functional independence. Unresolved technical issue or logistic question in some centers. And there is another option which is called surveillance or active surveillance. Spare the patient treatment they might not need. Allow the use of systemic therapy, but in these cases we need 3 monthly MR scan. So what is the treatment after surgery? Both whole bone radiotherapy and cavitary SRS reduce the local recurrence following resection of brain mets, but neither is improved overall survival. Whole bone radiotherapy result in reduced relapse elsewhere in the brain, such as new development of metastatic disease. SRS result in the better quality of life, longer functional independence, longer time until cognitive deterioration. And last of all, that we have the change, there is a recent change in thinking, that is active surveillance. So what is the dose fractionation for those for the post-operative SRS? There is a big study and multiple papers there. That is still not, there is no definitive guidelines that it should go for this. This is also dependent upon the size of the brain metastasis and the size of the post-resection cavity. So right now, which is commonly practiced in our country, that is the whole brain radiotherapy. Whole bone radiotherapy typically indicated in multiple brain mets. Optimal doses still not unclear, but most commonly uses 30 grain 10 fraction, others are 20 grain 5 fraction, also in hyperfractionation to 12 grain 2 fraction. Response rate is quite good, it is 60%, but side effect is alopecia, leukoencephalopathy. And the most significant risk or side effect is, and most debatable thing is, neurocognitive decline due to the damage of the brain parenchyma or induction of the intercerebral vascular change, which can be overcome by follows. That is the hippocampal avoidance whole bone radiotherapy. It can be possible with the modern radiotherapy such as volumetric arc therapy or VMET. There is a phase 3 input preservation of neurocognitive function was first published in the Govidi in JC, Journal of Oncology in 2019. And another trial is going on, the combination of hippocampal avoidance with the memantine, that is the drug which is used in the Alzheimer's disease. And this is the hippocampus, which is the control during the hippocampal avoidance whole bone radiotherapy. It has a tapered tail, body, and head, and it is such a nice guideline was published in the RTOG guideline, controlling guideline atlas, that is RTOG 0933. And it was also published in the International Red Journal in 2010, November issue. And the where dose limit of the hippocampus is 8 gray, where the whole brain should get 30 gray. The side picture in this shows the 8 gray in the hippocampus and the 30 gray in the whole brain. So, lastly, recently the drug memantine is added to the hippocampus whole brain RT, and it was a randomized in the two arms. One is placebo, another one is memantine 20 milligram within irradiation of whole brain RT for 24 weeks. Still on the 500 eligible patient was treated. Primary endpoint was preservation of HLB-RT compared with the placebo 24 weeks. 10 to less decline in the delayed recall. HBLRT means off-screen bulbar running test at 24 weeks, which is the p-value is not that significant, but it is improved. Longer time of cognitive decline under memantine is observed, and the probability of cognitive function failure at 24 weeks was 3.8% in the memantine arm and the 64.9% in the placebo, which is statistically significant. So, better result on memantine for executive function and processing speed and delayed recognition. In the both arms, there is the incremental progression for survival is the same, non-significant, overall survival is significant. But when you compare the time to cognitive function failure, it is a clearly benefited is shown in the memantine arm. And what is about if the patient we don't give the any radiotherapy versus best supportive care? There is a large study was done, which is known as a QUADS study. It's a phase 3 non-inferiority randomized trial, which is randomized in the two arms. One arm giving whole brain radiotherapy in brain metastases who are unsuitable for resection or SRS, and the arm only dexamethasone with supportive care. This is a non-inferiority phase 3 randomized trial. There is a small difference in the quality of life in both arms, and significant absence of a difference in survival and quality of life between the two groups. In the chart, there is a first is overall survival almost same in the both arms, whole brain radiotherapy and versus base supportive care, and quality of life is almost same, and the quality adjusted life there is no such much difference in the both arms. So, whole brain radiotherapy provides little additional clinically significant benefit for selected suggested patient group who are non-suitable for resection or SRS. So, should you bid or farewell to the brain laboratory? No, still now there is some beneficial effect of whole brain radiotherapy. Improve control in the central nervous system, reduce neurotoxicity with the modern radiotherapy such as hippocampal sparing and the use of memantine. And there is another thing here, sparing whole brain radiotherapy. And what is the cons of the whole brain radiotherapy? Preservation of neurocognitive function, preservation of quality of life, and there is no impact of overall survival. And lastly, regarding the radiotherapy treatment option in brain metastasis from non-small cell lung cancer, can we retreat with the SRS? That is the debatable thing. The patient was treated with the whole brain radiotherapy or a SRS in the different site. That patient can treat it different, can treat different additional area of brain, and we can retreat previously treated area also, but risk of radiation necrosis rises, and we should have to calculate the radiobiological dose. So, need to carefully weight it up. Response to SRS should be keep in mind, and the duration or gap, treatment gap from the past radiotherapy treatment. Not that, and while we treat the patient with SRS, we should keep in mind that treat the patient individually, not the CT scan or MRI finding. And what the guidelines said about the re-radiation, this is the NCCN 2020 treatment guideline, which shows in the red in mark the surgery followed by SRS in the recurrent disease at the local site. Though patient has got previous whole brain RT or SRS, it can be treated with the re-radiation. It can be single fraction or can be multiple fraction. Or also, so what next? Till now we have discussed about the multiple treatment option regarding the radiotherapy and brain metastasis from non-small cell lung cancer. So what is the next development? What we still right now? Is there any more development? Yes. Now it is the time or era of immunotherapy and oncogene mutation driven therapy. So brain mets treatment as a systemic treatment for the brain mets. Oncogene driven mutation that acts on the brain mets is EGFR inhibitors such as alutinib, osimertinib, ALK inhibitor such as alectinib, also the bevacizumab. And the immunotherapy is ipilimumab and the nivolumab. Nivolumab also shows a promising result in this recently. So if we start with the EGFR inhibitor osimertinib shows a significant progression-free survival in the patient with CNS metastasis. Osimertinib shows the 8.5 month progression-free survival, where it is compared with the platinum-based pemetrexed therapy, which is 4.2 months. And there is another TKI inhibitor which is used as the alutinib. It also shows the promising result in the brain metastasis in EGFR mutated non-small cell lung cancer patient. The picture that showed the multiple metastasis, the AB and the E and EF, this is the 2 months after the therapy, which is completely resolved the brain metastasis. And another TKI, that is crizotinib, this is the ALK positive. In the ALK positive patient, it shows a promising result. The first slide shows a yellow arrow shows the multiple brain metastasis coin shape. At the high dose 80 milligram BID, which shows a day 4 and day 18. In the day 18 MR scan, the coin shape multiple metastasis is almost resolving. So another new adding is the ALK inhibitor is alectinib. In the ALK study, it shows that it is compared in both two arms. One arm is crizotinib and another arm is alectinib. Both is the ALK inhibitor. In the alectinib, it shows that there is a CNS progression.
Dr. Sharif,
Is only 9.4%. The patient. Hello.
You just proceed.
Okay. In the crizotinib arm, it showed that the CNS progression is 41.4%, where the alectinib arm is. So we can, if we use alectinib, it does give a protection to CNS progression. Yes, the LS study shows that, the subset analysis shows that cumulative incidence of CNS progression can be protected by use of alectinib in ALK positive patient. So now everywhere, every seminar, every symposium, every webinar, there is a talk with the checkpoint inhibitors or the immunotherapy. Is there any role of immunotherapy treating the brain metastasis patient from the non-small cell lung cancer? Yes. The result from CheckMate 227, which was published in the 2020, it shows the patient with baseline brain metastasis in immunotherapy arm, the overall survival is 18.8 months. This is a 3-year cumulative data result. Where is compared with the chemotherapy arm, this is 13.7 months. And the overall survival without baseline metastasis is 17.1 months in the nivolumab and ipilimumab combined arm. Where is the chemotherapy arm? It is 13.3 months. And if we say about the use of pembrolizumab, in Lancet Oncology, it is presented by Sarah Goldberg et al. In 2017 that it shows 13% patient remaining progression-free in CNS progression-free at 1 year. And mean overall survival was 9.9 months, which is 40% in the 1 year and 34% in the second year. While pembrolizumab is used as a systemic therapy in brain metastasis in non-small cell lung cancer. It is a big chart which shows all the studies and evaluation of the immunotherapy, assessing the response in the brain metastasis from non-small cell lung cancer. So is there any protective mechanism or is there preventive treatment therapy which can give us a CNS progression? In some study, which is presented as a Vassalator at the ESMO 2020, in non-small cell lung cancer with asymptomatic brain metastasis, the brain phase 3 trial with bevacizumab, it shows that they have make a TR. Then one arm is AVIL trial, Avado trial, and Avarel trial. AVIL trial was composed of non-small cell lung cancer, and Avado is the breast cancer, HER2 negative, and the Avarel is the HER2 positive breast cancer. When we analyze the data of the AVIL study, it shows that the bevacizumab arm has less estimated progression, CNS progression, that is 2.6 versus 5.8. So before going to the thank you to the all, I like to request our learned panel of experts to discuss the recent development about the oncogene deprivation therapy and the immunotherapy in the management of brain metastasis from non-small cell lung cancer, and the recent development of the radiotherapy in brain metastasis. Thank you everyone for the patient sharing.
So thank you, Dr. Sharif, for covering all the aspects of these very challenging topics, particularly in the era of TKI therapy. So thank you again for trying to cover all the aspects. Now I would like to request our foreign faculties. I don't think he needs any introduction, but those who are very new in this field, they should know who is JP Agarwal sir is. He is the professor of radiation oncology, Tata Memorial Hospital. This is not enough to describe this young man. Actually, he is a very good friend of oncology field of Bangladesh. Every time we request him, he always extends his hands for any kind of academic endeavors. And here is Professor JP Agarwal sir, who is the authority in this field. Over to you, sir, JP Agarwal sir.
Suman, hi sir, good evening.
Sir, video please,
I
sir.
think, video,
Yes,
video. Yes. No, I think bandwidth is low, so that was the reason. Excellent presentation, Dr. Sharif. I think quite impressed. The radiation role in brain metastases, and I think you have covered almost everything. Just for a purpose of teaching, I would have covered a couple of more things if I have a permission to speak.
Yes, sir.
definitely, sir.
Okay. So I would have covered general care also along with that in terms of the uses of steroids and how much long and all those things. And lastly, Dr. Sharif, I may have added a prophylactic irradiation. Okay, role of prophylactic irradiation in NSCLC or more commonly in SCLC. Okay, because though the trials are negative for prophylaxis, but there is a serious thought in patients of very, very long-term survival, let's say in ALK or some ALK positive or ROS positive or some unknown driver mutation positive patients. Do you want to give a low dose prophylactic because most of them will fail in brain, right? So there is a serious talk on that going. Okay. Having said that, if there are anything I can, and believe me, I think I told Dr. Kamal, if I will be privileged to share his presentation, I will be really delighted. You know, it's a very delightful talk. So happy to. If somebody has any specific question, I am ready to answer.
Come on, go to
Thank
the
you,
chat
sir.
box.
Thank you, sir. Definitely we'll hear more regarding these topics on this question answer session. So Shomir, can you compile the question, or I would like to ask the
Take it from the chat box. Take it from the chat box.
अच्छा अच्छा chat box पे है. Okay. Okay. I
Sir,
never saw
sir,
that.
one question was there regarding the dose of steroid, when to initiate, and what should be the dose. This
Okay.
question are asked by two attendees.
Okay. The steroids are commonly given as a part of immunocompressive therapy, not intracranial compression therapies, basically. So when the performance status of the patient is low, or when you can say a KPS below 60, and when you see on a scan there is a lot of edema, okay, or when you are in doubt whether to just treat this patient with uh, steroids only, or you want to give a steroid challenge, that how well he's behaving on steroids, uh, then we give steroids. The common doses to begin with has been very varied. It is somewhere between 24 to 32 milligram, basically. Okay, and in divided doses. There is bit controversies that you should be treating like them in a circadian rhythm or in a divided doses, like 8 milligram injectable is available. Even a 4 milligram tablet is available of dexamethasone. So it is 2 tablets 3 times a day after some meals, and many a times we add H2 blockers with that. That is ranitidine or pantoprazole with that. And it should not be very long. The whole idea is quickly go in, see the response and assess it within 48 hours, 72 hours. And if the response has been great, uh, you should give at least some radiation. Okay. And especially in Indian subcontinent, when they present really in a bad shape, when the performance status is low, or like a RPA score is 3. So in that time, we really need to think whether to give really whole brain. Because in one of my series also, approximately 18% of the patient, and this was a reasonably large series only for lung cancer, they passed away within 3 months, you know. So basically we don't want to stretch our resources also in this group of patients. So that was the thought process, that really need to see a challenge of steroid. So if they become really well, we go ahead depending upon the performance status, 20 gray in 5 fractions or 30 gray in 10 fractions. So that is our strategy, and we taper it within 7 days or with the completion of treatment within 2 weeks of the treatment. Prolonged steroid itself will cause a lot of problems, right from moon phase to insomnolence and so many psychiatric issues, which will mess with your electrolyte imbalance. So better to quickly switch it off.
Thank you, sir. Next question from Mohammad Toimur Hossain. So his question is there is no overall survival benefit, then why we should go for SRS in case of brain mets?
Okay. See, I agree what you are trying to say. So there are many endpoints in brain metastases. So one of the important in brain metastases, the endpoint has been described as quality of life as well as your cognitive functions. And since what we have recognized, there are some group of patients who are going to really survive long, even 5 years, 48 months median has been proven in the ALK series. So if you radiate this, and if you have experienced some patients, let's say after 13-10, there is definitely a memory issues in terms, not complete loss, but definitely what I have also seen is slowed down. some incoherences comes in, it is like a very early subtle Alzheimer's symptoms comes. So people don't want that. And especially in a driver mutation, brain metastases, the median age is on a lesser side, let's say around 50 in comparison to non-mutation drivers, which are on a higher side. So in this group of patient, a focal treatment is important to preserve the quality of life as well as treat them effectively with a higher dose without much side effect. So that's the thought process.
So thank you, sir. I think our next question is from Mohammad Hossein. His question is, how can we monitor the response of EGFR TKI therapy? Is there any option for measurement of EGFR mutant circulating DNA in CSF?
Oh, that was a real bomb, to be very honest. Uh, so traditionally, any brain irradiation, many people are not monitoring right now. And not definitely not in CSF. I have no experience, to be very frank. And to do a invasive CSF procedure, even after brain metastasis patients, there are always issues of leptomeningeal spread, some infection, and so many other things. Okay, so we don't do CSF monitoring. That is one, routinely. Second thing, not even liquid biopsy monitoring so commonly. So the only way we monitor or after SRS or a focal treatment is through the MRI. Okay, and that too only a very experienced neurologist or a neuroradiologist, what we say, are able to differentiate between recurrence vis-a-vis a progression many a times. A classic in like in old GBMs, or nowadays what we are sometimes seeing a very uncommonly pseudo progression, especially with after some immunotherapy also in the brain, right? So it's a very critical that a serial scans are done and to understand whether there is really a pseudo progression or a progression. And believe me, we may be radiation oncologists, but we should be clinician first. We should assess the patient's symptoms, clinically examine a patient, assess a neurological uh, signs and symptoms, very patiently understand the complaints of patient and the family, and then we should progress with the treatment. Whatever you believe in, a focal plus, whole brain, or only boost or surgery with whole brain. So whatever permutation combination you do. I hope I may have answered the question. Maybe it was too big a question for a very small, a very big answer for a very small question. But it was really very, I have not done it in my life years.
So the next question from Dr. Tasnim Hussain. Her question is, which group of patients should we choose for active surveillance? So is there any option for active surveillance in brain mets, particularly from non-small cell lung cancer?
Yes, we have initiated a trial for few patients, asymptomatic brain mets with driver mutations, or a patient whom you have seen with no symptoms, incidentally done a MR and was on erlotinib or osimertinib, which you are a lucky ones. You get osimertinib made in Bangladesh. I don't know how, but many people also take it here. So in this group of patients, we don't few, far and few in number, and we know that we can approach them at any given point of time, in the sense that they can come to the hospital even with the slightest symptoms they have, or in a research mode as what we are trying to do. So in this group of patients, we are just closely observing, and the principle is they should be ready for a routine MR at a regular interval. Also, if they have any symptom, we may have to intervene much before.
So next question from Altaf Hussain Riyad. What should be the optimal duration before re-RT? So his question is on regarding re-radiation therapy in brain mets.
Yeah, I have dabbled sometimes in that. It's again a very tough question. So certainly, I have not radiated before 6 months, except in couple of patients with a very focal progression. Okay, very focal progression I have radiated, and when they were in a critical area. But by and large, if they have crossed something like 9 months, 1 year after a whole brain radiation, which is commonly practiced in the Indian subcontinent, I have radiated. The radiation may have been even with the whole brain, but most of the time it has been focal. Okay, focal radiation in the terms of only the lesions which have increased in size, either by conformal focal or a stereotactic mode. Okay, so that has been our strategy. And the conventionally, what we do is something like what I say 39 in 13 fractions. So we give something like 3.3 gray boost in some patients, or we give them something like 40 gray in 10, something like that, or we have given even 50 gray in 10 fractions, means you treat 30 gray whole brain and 5 gray to the areas of the gross disease. So it is something like SIB treatment. Okay, so variety, just like Dr. Sharif was showing, the multiple fractions like 9 gray in 3 fractions to 15 gray in single fraction of stereotaxy. So various permutation and combination has been done, and we have also dabbled to certain extent. But the commonest regime in our brain mets have been 39 in 13 to the initial ones, and then if at all you want to give some boost, it has been 24 gray or 27 gray in fractionated doses.
Okay, sir, we have few more questions in the chat box. One question from Dr. F.M. Kamaluddin. Shall we continue the TKI like Arlo or osimertinib even after development of brain mets if the lung primary is stable? So if the lung primary is stable, development of brain mets, should we continue TKI?
Yeah, I think we have done that as a very pragmatic solution. So let's say that this patient was on erlotinib and we don't have access to osimertinib so commonly. So what we have continued erlotinib, and we have given the whole brain radiation to hypofractionated areas like 13, 10 or something like that. And if they were on a bigger side, we have even given SIB doses or higher doses to the gross area. We have done that. And I think this is a very fair, pragmatic way. So if you think there is a very small increase and you don't have access, let's say, to osimertinib, people have switched to erlotinib plus chemotherapy along with brain metastases. So that is also a small option. But the third option may be that you switch to systemic straight away, commonly practiced here, and then give brain RT. Another way, as a part of study, you should be thinking, or we should be thinking in terms of in a non-driver mutation patients, okay, as a second line chemo or some form of immunotherapy. But we need to have a bigger experience. At least I should have a bigger experience before I say to a very confident that we have done hundreds of patients. We have not done hundreds, maybe few, because it's really expensive. But one of the first patients, what we did was something like a doctor's father. Wife was a breast patient. He was himself in RPA 3, and it was just doctor wanted to do something, and we did it. And believe me, it was my surprise. So from that day, the faith in immunotherapy is becoming stronger. He just became all right within 48 hours. And very unfortunate, the wife who was so healthy and hearty, she passed away with progressive disease within 6 months. And this man, we have treated him something like 3 years back, and he's still holding on. So he still gives me goosebumps. So that's the life.
Okay, sir. Next question from Dr. Mahmudul Hassan. Is there any role of anticonvulsant therapy as prophylaxis?
Dr. Sarif has to answer that, I think. No, I can definitely answer. But Dr. Sarif, I think that's the key.
Yes, sir.
I think.
I think Dr.
You have done such a beautiful reading, I really appreciate that. And I hope somebody will come up there with their thesis and publications because you must be treating so many brain metastases, right? So
Yes.
we must have some data of Bangladesh, even if we have 50 members in a club who are academically active, 5 patient of a common series, 250 patients straight away overnight. That's what I'm trying to say. No. So coming back to question, Dr. Sarif, you want to answer or shall I?
So as
Sir,
you were
can proceed,
here,
sir.
I think Sharif won't
You are
dare
the
to
mentor.
answer. But Sharif, you should give a special thanks to JP sir
Of course.
for taking all
No,
the
no,
hard.
no.
Sir, please, JP sir.
Okay. So in earlier times, people were using barbiturates, like Gardinal or something like that. Then came the phenantine era. And both these drugs are good drug, cheap, but they are, they are the potentiator of some enzymes in liver. And when we give so many chemotherapy drugs, they cause induction of those drugs to be on a lower level. Or to simplify and to say there is a lot of drug-drug interaction with these drugs. So many a times, even though we have started these drugs, they were basically causing much more issues. So nowadays, what I see is levetiracetam is one of the very commonly prescribed drug, and that is the drug which is of a drug of choice for conversion. To give in a prophylactic manner, there is nice pattern of care studies. Only 1/3 or less number of patients require anticonversions. It may not be given routinely in all the patients, especially because just think when to switch off. To prescribe is easy, but when to switch off will be a tough decision. So always I say going in is very easy. We should not become Abhimanyu. That we knew how to enter and break through the enemy lines, but how to come out of the enemy lines is most important for me. So I don't start prophylactically, and many a times it has been started prophylactically, and sometimes the patient has forgotten to take for 10 days, 15 days. I then don't start it. I say, let it come, then we will take care of it. But I make the patient very aware. I make the patient to be we do a dummies trial that if something like that happens, put the patient in SIMS positions and don't worry, let the tongue, see the tongue, there is no tongue bite, etc. And once it's settled down, come to the clinic, we'll take care of you. So that is the strategy I use. So
Thank you, sir.
prophylaxis, no.
Okay, sir. So our last question, sir. This question is from Dr. Asma Siddiqa. Her question is, what are the criteria for prescribing whole brain RT or SRS or both or no RT after surgery? So this is a long question, sir. What are the criteria
Yeah.
for WRT or SRS?
I think it will be good if you share the presentation with everybody. Dr. Sharif has shown a very nice slide when he has shown the three characteristics from a whole brain to surveillance. I think in between it was focal RT, whole brain, and the surveillance.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, madam, we should be thinking how best we can help these patients from no RT when the performance status is very low. You have at the end of the road, there are disseminated disease in the whole body, and you are on the third line of systemic treatment, and the patient is just moribund. Probably I may not give any treatment except the steroids and the best supportive care. If there are multiple metastases, mutation driver negative, and with lot of edema, give radiation. I don't believe in 12 gray in two fractions. I'm sorry, that is my perception. Um, that you need to treat really some dose so that if chance to regress, And there was a nice audit from the UK itself, from where this regime originated, and they discouraged it. So that's the reason in, I think, Quartz trial also the minimum dose was 20 gray versus observation. So in a not so good performance status, lung 20/5 is good. 13/10 is better in a better KPS patients in your scenario. If you have a facility for SRS or IMRT with boost, and these patients can come on follow-up, especially if they are on a mutation driver, think of that. And if they are a very young patient, very small metastases like a rice drops, not in critical area, asymptomatic, can do a regular MR, can come to your clinic at your wish, may think of observation or use a systemic drug which acts intracranially also. And this whole thing of focal is just a cognitive effect. But believe me, they are going to come and do more number of MRs because there are going to be a lesion away from the what we have treated. So technically, it is not a very cost effective or efficient way of treating this group of patients. But maybe for some cognitive effect may be very important. Let's say a mathematics professor, okay, if he's teaching, if he forgets his formula, it may be costing his life or his job. So we need to really work on that. I hope I answered the question.
Yes,
Dr.
thank you.
Asma?
Yes. Asmapa, do you have any supplementary question regarding these issues? Okay. So I think, sir, we have covered all the questions from the chat box. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for giving us giving your precious.
No, Suman, thank you for giving me the opportunity of seeing a presentation in the Sunday afternoon. I know you people are busy today. It's not so hot day for me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We always
Thank
know you are always there for our side.
No. We are together.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So our duration of total today's program is almost near to the end. May I request Shamir to please input the question in the chat box. It is the quiz time.
Sure, sir. I'm doing it, sir. So during the quiz, there was a proposal from Dr. JP.
about looking at the data of all experience.
No, no, no. Proposal, no, no. Think it's your wish. I
Yeah,
thought just think my thoughts.
I'm adding that these are
Okay.
the discussion that make serious stimulation among our colleagues, but it works like this soda water, because it comes very fast and goes also very fast. So
Okay.
during discussion, I see many enthusiasm, but later on, I hardly find any consistency. So already I have some proposals to discuss it with you. So without taking your consent, I am telling everybody that if any of our colleague wants to take the lead, nothing, simply see the survival of whole brain RT in non-small cell lung cancer. They will collect the data. I am assuring you that Dr. JP will be there to support us to analyze the data or how to write it. Everything will be done, but somebody of us need to be volunteer and bring this 5 into 50 story happen, which is doable, but it is everybody's job, so nobody do it. So maybe I'm a bit harsh, but my previous experience is that with this enthusiasm we move, but it never happens. So this is really a doable thing, and what Dr. JP was telling, that is really very important, and we are to be blamed, the seniors, because now I treat myself as a bit senior, that there is no data from our country. It is quite unfortunate. We are sitting on the tons of data, but there is no data. So we are not having enough data. So we
John
should.
Conibear joined.
We have a guest now just walked in from his Christmas holiday. John Conibear is there. We can say hi to John.
Hello, Dr. John. How are you?
Good morning, John. All great.
So I have one question to Dr. JP. So we had enough discussion on SRS, SRT. So majority of our center don't have the luxury of doing SRS. So what they are doing whole brain RT. And as there is no IMRT, they cannot do the hippocampal sparing also. So, but with the conventional, only the 3D or in the Cobalt, do you have any tips to give to make some improvement in the whole brain RT?
So to begin with, what I saw was we even don't do a immobilization. Am I right, Kamal?
Yes, many of the time, yes, we don't do.
So a good immobilization and a good whole brain is first step. Okay. So the second step may be giving only on cobalt to a big volume disease some form of conformal boost. Okay. So that is the second step. The third step, in few patients whom you think or whom we think that this patient has a potential long-term survival, let's give some form of low dose to the present cognitive target organ at dose, organ at risk areas like hippocampal and parahippocampal area, as low dose as possible, around 6 gray or less, if that is possible. So that is the third step. The extreme step will be definitely SRS and all those things.
Thank you, JP. I think that is a take, because first of all, I want to tell my junior colleagues that Sharif in the beginning told a thing, and Dr. JP was repeatedly talking about MRI. In his total discussion, he never uttered a single time about CT scan. That is the message, that in brain mets, the imaging is MRI, MRI, and MRI. We should not do CT because we can miss 30% of the lesion in CT scan. So if we are doing a CT scan, we are losing 30% chance. Maybe we are going for the MRI second time. So that is another take. And what Dr. JP said, immobilization and trying to give some boost to the lesion is important. And in metastasis, we should not take care of the edema like glioma. That is another mistake we sometimes do. Edema is not an issue in metastasis. It is glioma when we consider the edema. So John, thanks for joining us even in the holiday. I know you were on holiday. So we have been discussing about the brain mets. We know that you people do many SRS, but as I was talking, that in our center, many of our centers are not fortunate to have the luxury. So as Dr. JP was talking about the whole brain RT and hippocampal sparing, would you like to say some few words that how you want to manage?
Yeah, so we have very strict criteria for SRS in the context of the NHS. So in Barts, where I work, we're an SRS centre. I think so far this year we've treated 200 cases. So in terms of eligibility criteria, less than 3 centimetres in maximal dimension for any of the lesions, total volume less than 20 cc, good performance status, and an expected life expectancy of over 6 months. If the patient doesn't qualify based on one or more of those not being met, then the approach would be to either consider whole brain radiotherapy or alternatively to do some form of conformal radiation. I heard your comment earlier to say that some centres don't have access to IMRT, hippocampal sparing, for instance. I think the key thing is, as you've mentioned, is if you can, MRI is really important to visualise what disease is within the patient's brain. My approach is if they're not suitable for SRS, then I'll ask my team to fuse the MR imaging they've had. And as you've said, I'll delineate the tumour at an appropriate margin for PTV, bearing in mind what immobilisation techniques you have, and then ask the dosimetry team to do some form of conformal plan. But I think the most important thing is if you don't have access to the equipment or the expertise, the last thing you want to do is to miss. And so whatever centre you work in, whatever equipment and skills you have, the key thing is that you don't geographically miss your target. Otherwise, you're treating for the patient for no benefit and really just toxicity. So it's important to know what your limitations are.
Is there anything for both of you? I'm asking that if the lesion is in the cerebellum, I mean, we know it is a bit more sensitive area. So say we were thinking of a conformal radiotherapy. I don't have an SRS, but if it is in a parietal area, it's fine. But when it is at cerebellum, shall we be more cautious or we can go the same? Anything special for the cerebellum?
I think when you're doing whole brain doses, 20 and 5 or 30 and 10, I don't think it's an issue. When it comes to doing stereotactic radiosurgery, yeah, there is evidence in terms of tissue sensitivity, some being more sensitive than others. Cerebellum doesn't tend to be such a problem. Temporal areas can be an issue. So I use both modalities. So I'm trained in Gamma Knife, but I also do SRS on Linac and CyberKnife. One of the methods that I use now in Gamma Knife is a stage procedure. So we treat patients with 3 stages, so 10 gray times 3, with a 2-week gap in between each stage. And in fact, so I've treated very recently 2 patients one with breast cancer, one with lung cancer with large pituitary metastases. And what the benefit of this is that it's an adaptive approach. So on the first, second and third fraction, what you hope to see and what I've seen so far is real shrinkage of the target. So a sort of, in one patient, a 60% reduction in the volume treated, which means you end up sparing the proximal sort of optic apparatus quite nicely. So there's different ways to skin a cat, but again, it comes back to safety and making sure that you are being safe and that you're not missing.
So Shuman, I'm going to take off, but I want to mention one thing that we missed, that we are talking in a platform which was founded by a person, and globally he was known as a brain guy. If you still open a radiotherapy chapter of brain, you will find Karim et al. Because still the low-grade glioma dose given by him is the standard. So we should remember that great man who was a radiation guy and more a brain radiation guy. Later he worked on larynx, I know. But we are fortunate that today we're talking on brain. So what a coincidence. And we are fortunate to be his descendant and we are sitting on the same platform. And I want to finish by telling one thing, taking off. that to all my colleagues that it is interesting to talk SRS, re-radiation, all these fantastic thing. But you can see that John sitting in UK, being trained in Gamma Knife, he is talking about whole brain RT because all patients don't qualify for SRS. So, I mean, we should know SRS, we should read SRS, we should think of SRS, but we should not kill ourselves for SRS because still a majority of the patient don't qualify for it. And John was telling a funny, interesting thing that there are many ways of skinning the cat, but safety is the more important thing. So if I cannot do it, we should not go for it. I mean, the last week we had a program on colorectal cancer where our good friend LSE was showing a data of doing SBRT by Cobalt. But he didn't mention to do Cobalt SBRT need more skill than a person with a IMRT because there you need to be much more precise when you really use those technique with the old machine. So I think what Dr. JP was telling, that is the message that whatever we do, even a whole brain RT, we should do it judiciously. We should properly immobilize. We should really identify the tumor, what John was telling. We should try to focus this thing. So on this type of thing, and the question that Shuman was mentioning, even not OS, why we are treating for quality of life. So not for the sake of treatment, we should treat with the quality. So Shuman, over to you.
So thank you all the faculties for their knowledgeable inputs. I'd like to give a special thanks to John Conevier for spare his day in his Christmas leave. Thanks to JP Agarwal sir. If we summarize today's discussion, we need to do MRI with contrast for brain metastasis, and at least we should try to do the GPA score according to the last GPA mole, because it is not a straightforward treatment. It is individualized. We need to check whether there is a driver mutation or not, whether the primary is controlled or not, whether this patient is expected to having a longer life. So these all things should be considered, and we should prescribe our treatment according to the judgment, according to the GPA molecular score. So that's all. Whether it is whole brain RT or SRT or SRS with cavity radiation therapy, that is really individualized, and it will be depend on the overall status of this patient. So thank you all. Last, I would like to request our chairman, Professor M.A. Heiser, to say a few words and conclude the session. Professor M.A. Heiser, over to you, sir.
Quiz result, Shuman.
Oh, and quick result. Yeah, Shamir, can you please show the results?
I have already given you the winner name, sir. I'm showing the slides.
Can you please show the slide? So today's winner is Altaf Hossain Riyad. I don't think that it is now required to declare his name regularly, because he has make a habit of this winning regularly. So congratulations, Dr. Altaf Hossain Riyad, for again winning the quiz. So thank you, Riyad. Now I would like to request Professor M.A. Heiser to conclude this session. Professor M.A. Heiser.
Thank you, Shuman. It's wonderful afternoon we spent today. Thanks to Dr. JP and John for their great gracious presence here. I shall say one thing to Dr. Sharif. His presentation was very nice. Covered everything. Only thing I shall tell him is, when you have stated that you can do this, you can do this. You have to avoid statements like that. It can be done like that. But don't say that you can do this, you can do that. You have to try to avoid this thing. Others, everything okay? These discussions were very good. And great thanks to JP. He covered almost all the radiotherapy part and radiation. Thank you all very much. And goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
So
you.
we also want to thanks to our academic partner, AstraZeneca and MGH, for their support. And we hope to see you again on next Sunday, same time. And for this oncology session 2021, but we are having another session on Tuesday on gynae, as sir said. But for this lung session next week, 2021, we're going to see each other again. So until then, goodbye.